Welcome to Lawyers Without Billboards, where we break down family law and other areas of the law. No gimmicks, no legal jargon, just real, unfiltered talk from real lawyers. Join your hosts, Steve, Patty, Jimmy, and Alexa, partners at Shewmaker Lewis, a law firm based in Atlanta, Georgia. Every episode, they tackle the legal questions that matter most: divorce, custody, child support, alimony, and everything in between. They'll pull back the curtain to give you real insights on what happens inside the courtroom and beyond.
This week, we're going to talk about child support, and specific to child support, the new parenting time adjustment. Okay, and let's talk about this. So last year, 2024, the Georgia legislature, for the first time in like 15 years, longer than that.
It's been a while.
Almost 20 years. Almost 20 years. Made some significant adjustments to the child support model in Georgia.
Would the last time have been when they
2007, yeah.
That's 2007 when they instituted the
So 14 years.
The shared income model.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So as part of the legislation, the legislature has now put into the statute a parenting time adjustment. Now, it doesn't go into effect until January 1st of 2026, but I wanted to talk about it because I've started seeing judges refer to this and start to use it in their child support calculations. Have you guys had any experience with this so far? Even though it's not the law yet, have you guys seen judges use this or refer to this?
I haven't seen judges specifically say you need to do this, but also in Metro Atlanta, it's not uncommon that cases will take a while. And so it's something I think is at least in the back of everyone's mind that we probably need to go ahead and start planning for some of those particular cases that we may need to calculate all of this in accordance with the new law.
Yeah, what about you, Steve?
I haven't seen a judge do it, but I haven't been in court a ton in the last month, except for last week. But it makes sense because if you're a judge, what people have to understand is a judge may have several hundred or over 1,000 cases on his docket or her docket. And the judge might say, look, I don't want this case to come in here on a modification in 2026 when I can take away the basis of that modification right now by just using the new law. Now, it's real interesting because I had heard a rumor that some judges, I think maybe it was Cobb County, were saying, no, we're not going to do this until it's in effect. And I may have the county wrong, but, I can understand.
I will tell you, I had one judge in Gwinnett County specifically ask me if I had prepared. I mean, I had a case, we're asking for a parenting time deviation because under the current law, and we'll talk about what the difference is, it's a parenting time deviation, which is discretionary. I had a judge ask me if I used the formula under the new parenting time adjustment and had that prepared for him. I also have been told by a couple of attorneys down in Houston County that the judges down there have already said, we're going to start using this now just to get used to using it.
Well, you didn't ask me, am I doing the calculations now? Yes, I am. And I'm telling my clients about them now because it's important to get the range of child support that we're dealing with, whether it's under the old rule or the new one.
Sure.
So my clients are getting emails from me where I'm saying, I have analyzed this. And it used to take, by the way, about 2 minutes to do a child support analysis. I could do it on the phone with a potential client. I mean, I'm just basically ballparking monthly gross incomes for both of them and looking at the tables and then figuring out small deviations for health insurance and child care. Now, as I'm sure you're going to get into, it's what used to take 2 minutes is now taking me about 45 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking all about this, but let's break it down for those who don't know what we're talking about or aren't familiar with what we're talking about. I don't even know what we're talking about
because it doesn't make any sense.
Well, before you go any further for the listeners, this is going to be a really dry episode, so I might have to punctuate it here and there with more tasteless jokes at Jimmy's expense.
Fair enough.
Really glad you just put out a warning.
Fair enough.
Trigger warning, everybody.
Y'all been warned.
What else is new?
Absolutely. Love you, buddy.
All right. So what the new statute says is that beginning January 1st of 2026, the court shall, meaning the court has to, apply a parenting time adjustment. So in Georgia, let's back up and give you kind of the 10,000-foot view of child support. Georgia, like Steve referenced, Georgia uses a shared income model. So we look at both parents, we look at their income, we add up their income, we come up with a combined gross monthly income. Right. We go to the statute that has tables of numbers that says, okay, for one child or two child, for parents that have a gross...
children?
One child or two child.
Two child.
Or two children.
Maybe three child. Hell, there could even be four child.
Four child.
You know. But
Sweet child of mine.
All right. So for the number of children, then the basic child support obligation based on the combined gross monthly income for the parties is X, and then we divide it pro rata to the parties' incomes.
Yeah, can I give some historical context here?
Yeah.
Last I checked, about half the states in the country,
more than half now, do a shared income.
Use the shared income model. Mm-hmm. The other half, or now less than half, use the old model. I don't even remember what it's called, but it was basically a percentage.
Percentage of the non-custodial parent
so
pay.
like if you're dad and you don't have primary custody and there's two kids, you're going to pay 28% of your gross income in child support. Georgia followed that model until about 2007. And then it went, and at the time, I think Georgia was like the 35th or 34th state to switch to the shared income model. And the shared income model is supposed to take into account what the primary parent will make. Like a good example is a man and woman divorce, and the woman gets custody of the kids, and the man makes $300,000 a year at Delta Airlines, and he's like, yeah, I got to pay all this child support. But what if the mom also works at Delta Airlines and makes more money?
Right.
The percentage of income model, the old model, doesn't consider that. So the shared income model was supposed to be one of these equality measures.
Well, I like to look at it as, we start from the basic premise in a shared income model that both parents have a financial obligation to their child's, not just the non-custodial parent. Now, what's interesting, and this is actually an interesting kind of sidebar. There's a third model that's out there for child support. Do you know what it is?
I don't.
Do either one of you? They
enlighten us.
They refer to it as the Delaware model.
Fumigate us with your vast wisdom.
There's only last time I looked at this, which has been a couple years, there's only 3 states that use it.
Delaware, one of them?
Yeah.
Look at you.
They started it.
If Delaware didn't use it, I would be very confused.
You'd be very surprised. And there's a couple other states. And what's interesting, and I think it's appropriate, it considers not only the income of both the parents, but it also considers their cost of living, and that's something that is often missing in a shared income approach, because you get a lot of child support orders or obligations that are very onerous on the paying parent, because it doesn't take into account that they maybe have certain debts that they're servicing, or that their cost of living. So the Delaware model does that. The problem is it becomes very cumbersome, which is probably why it hasn't been adopted in more states.
Well, this new model in Georgia we're talking about we're about to introduce some cumbersome.
Just wait. So let Patty read the language.
Let's talk about how it's calculated. So it first of all, it only applies to court-ordered parenting time. Sometimes we have cases that maybe it's pre-filing and the parties have separated, or it's pre-legitimation and the parties are just doing, what they want to do. What they want to do,
whatever
which good for
to.
them. That's good parenting, just co-parenting.
You call that OTF, and they're out there flapping.
Yeah,
laissez-faire,
that's
right?
ODFing.
ODFing.
Out there.
Yeah.
Out there flapping.
So
just do what they want to do.
The first step.
I'm sorry, did you make laissez-faire a verb?
I did.
It's impressive. All right, so the first step in this parenting time adjustment. Okay, pay attention.
Sorry,
squirrel. For those of you,
this is not 7th grade, Jimmy. Pay attention.
The first step is you have to calculate the number of overnights each parent has in a 2-year period.
Well, that's because of alternating vacations.
That's right. We use 2 years because we alternate. Typically, we alternate holidays.
Right. And when I said it, I went from 2 minutes to 45 minutes. It's because I got to open up this calendar and I got to click each day in a 2-year period that one of the parents is going to have the kids. And I'm sorry, but I object to that because that takes a ton of time.
It's a lot.
There is a Latin word for that loosely. I didn't take Latin in school in Alabama, Stan. And it's loosely translated to, that's a shitload of time I could be doing something else. It just bothers me.
Yeah. Right? And so you calculate that, and then, of course, you then get the average over the 2 years for what each parent has. Now, here's a good question for you guys. Let me know if you know the answer. what do you do if you have a parent that doesn't have overnights? Let's say they just have daytime visitation.
Hours.
Did you know
start
that?
adding up the
Oh, you mean
hours.
under the new system we add up the hours?
Yeah.
So if you have a
So
parent
if-
that doesn't have overnights, it's not, they have no overnights. You have to break it down by hours.
So you have 4 hours every other Saturday over the course of 2-year period.
I'm confused.
you count up the
because-
hours
No.
and
I'm
you
confused
divide
'cause
it by
5 minutes ago-
365 to get into days.
I need a sidebar here. Sidebar. I'm confused because 5 minutes ago, we're 6 now. Patty said something about this new model, and you're like, I don't know what this is, and now you're telling us the intricacies of the same model.
I only know this because she told me.
Okay, well, that's how you learned to practice law. So that's-
Because I told her.
Can we talk about that time when Jimmy was an associate and he cried?
That's
Next episode.
But it's
So
not germane.
So if you have a parent that doesn't have overnights, you take the hours, you count up the hours of visitation that they have in a year, you divide that by 365 to get the number of days or
Which is
overnights.
insane.
Yeah, I mean,
It's insane.
So it becomes very convoluted. Then, did you want to add something?
No,
you
I'm
just got to
You
stop.
just look
and-
confused.
I
You
hate
gotta stop
this.
and think about
I
it.
hate that. I mean, I get responses from other attorneys that it's too burdensome for me to produce 24 months of bank statements for you, but now the law says I have to do this, and this is clearly burdensome.
Yeah, and I will tell you, in some of the cases that I've already used this in, specifically, I had a case that we took it to arbitration, and I did this. Not only do you have to prepare the calendar, I had to prepare the calendar for what our proposed parenting plan was, but then also prepare the calendar for what the other parent's proposed parenting plan was, and say,
Right.
okay, this is the parenting time adjustment, Judge, if you go with my plan, and here's the parenting time adjustment if you go with their plan.
But what happens if they don't go with either?
Well,
Now you got to do
And
another one. Now the
here's-
judge
and
is basically like,
and
here's what to do.
where
Y'all
I'll
figure it out.
interject. I will be honest, I've only used this about 5 or 6 times so far. And I'm using it now because I know it's coming. The writing's on the wall. And what I'm experiencing is what you just addressed, Alexa, where I've got 2 parents who aren't sure what the custody is going to be. We're in the negotiation stage. So for my client, I'm running several different models. Well, guess what? Each different model requires me to go back to that 24-month calendar and click those buttons again from scratch. And I'm having to bill my clients for this because it's inefficient.
Yeah, it's arduous.
Yeah, and if some of you are wondering, okay, well, where is this calendar that Steve is using?
Minnesota calendar. isn't it?
Well, I'll tell you what. So if you go to the Georgia Child Support Guidelines homepage, it has a link to the parenting time adjustment, which is an Excel spreadsheet. You download that. On the first tab of the Excel spreadsheet, it has links to 2 online calendars that you can use. One is with Minnesota. Another one is with the state of Oregon. They have online calendars, which, they are actually pretty handy because you can say, okay, start with, mom has every other weekend, Friday overnight, Saturday overnight, and it'll auto-populate that for you, and then you just go back. Then you just go back in, or you can also put in they have every other week, and then just go back in.
So this is not the Minnesota one.
That's
because
that's the Minnesota one.
The Minnesota one will auto-populate?
Yeah.
Well, you need to show me that because that might cut down my time dramatically. I didn't know
probably.
that.
I mean, and that's not. I mean, that gives you the start point, right?
Yeah.
Because then you have to go back and adjust for holidays,
Holidays.
and maybe there's some additional time.
I need a Patty
Summers.
Shewmaker tutorial on this because I'm just fumbling through
Can
this
we
like a
can we make that
caveman.
happen? Because I need one too.
Yeah,
Yeah, we need to do an internal
we can do
ceiling
that.
on this.
So
Yeah.
I will say, as a sidebar,
yeah.
one of my clients actually, and he's a sharp guy, I can't say his name right now, of course, but he actually brought me estimates based on the Minnesota calendar. He researched, and he's not even a lawyer.
Yeah.
Researched
And
it
you-
himself, brought it to me. I, of course, double-checked it, and he was pretty good.
You don't.
So he doesn't subscribe to the divorce myths. He's just like figuring stuff out because he's actually reading.
Yeah, every once in a while you get a client who's remarkably sharp. Not to say people are stupid, I don't mean that, but he's remarkably good at this, which surprised me.
Yeah. Well, so
invested.
you don't
Yeah, he
don't
is.
have to be an attorney, right? This is all publicly available.
Oh, yeah.
Again, there's links. There's a link to the parenting time adjustment on the Georgia Child Support Guidelines homepage, and then within the parenting time adjustment spreadsheet, there are links to both the Minnesota and the Oregon calendar.
But let's jump ahead here. I
Right.
want to ask you this.
Right. Well, we're only through step 1. We haven't
Right.
gotten to step 2. You want me
right,
to talk
well-
about step 2?
Yeah, go ahead and talk about stuff.
Well, I wanted one more comment on that. I think the reason that judges are having us start working on this stuff now is because they're going to have to be able to understand it for pro se parties when they have to use it, because
Right.
you can't possibly expect a pro se party to walk in with all these different worksheets
Pro
that are going to
se
explain all these
meaning
things.
somebody who doesn't have an
Somebody
attorney.
who doesn't
right?
have a lawyer.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure it's only a matter of time before the Georgia Child Support Commission gets their own calendar on the Georgia Child Support Guidelines homepage as well for this.
Yes, it will be a matter of time.
Yeah.
I don't know how much, but it will be.
Maybe
It'll happen,
2029, but
Could be.
Those are good people at Georgia Child Support Commission. All right, so that's step one. Step one is just figuring out the number of days, the number of overnights, right? And then you go to the parenting time adjustment spreadsheet. Okay, let me tell you something. And I could go through, I have written down here the statute and the calculations in this statute for the parenting time deviation. Let me just start to read like the first part of it, okay?
reads like
and I'll
German.
stop. Yeah, it reads like German.
Yeah.
The court shall apply the following formula to determine the parenting time adjustment. Raise to the power of 2.5 the number of court-ordered days a non-custodial parent has with the child. Right? And hence why we have to...
We talk about like exponents?
Yes.
Yeah. And then,
But 2.5 for
step 2,
exponent.
raise to the power of 2.5 the number of court-ordered days the custodial parent has with the child. Okay, everybody got that?
Sure.
Step 3, multiply the result of the division in step 1 by the dollar amount of the custodial parent's share of the basic child support obligation.
Okay.
I don't even know what that says.
Jimmy went to John Marshall in Auburn. I know he doesn't know what this says.
I don't even know what it says.
I went to Alabama. I don't know what this
I
says.
went to Georgia.
All right,
And
so-
Georgia State.
Patty, you went to West Point. You understand that?
I totally.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's just her.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, it's 2 plus 2 potato.
So
2 plus 2 equals
so
potato.
internal ceiling.
well,
Got it.
no, Patty, put it in Nebraska terms where you're
Corn.
from. Corn.
Corn. That's right. We're just
right.
counting kernels of corn.
I
All
still
right.
don't know what this is.
No one knows.
So it's a very convoluted calculation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say 2 things about this. So first of all, again, if you download the parenting time adjustment spreadsheet,
Mm-hmm.
it will do the calculations for you. The formulas are built into the spreadsheet.
That must be why I don't know what this is, because
You-
I did
Exactly.
You
did that
input
thing, yeah.
you input the average number of days for the custodial parent. You put the average number of days per year for the non-custodial parent. You put in the basic child support obligation for the custodial parent, the non-custodial parent, and it spits out this is the parenting time adjustment.
So you still run a worksheet with their incomes, get the basic child support obligation, then go to this guy, do this stuff, and then go back to the regular worksheet.
and then put the parenting
Cool.
time adjustment in. But understand something right now on the current child support worksheet, it's a parenting time deviation. Deviation is discretionary. Adjustment is mandatory.
Okay.
Now,
I got to interrupt. How in the world is a layperson listening to this podcast going to grasp anything of value here?
They're not.
Look, Steve, the reality is
They're
that
gonna learn they need to
there
hire
are
somebody.
a lot of lawyers in this state who are now like, I went to law school so I didn't have to do math,
Yeah.
who are now looking at this having a panic attack.
Yeah.
let
Well,
me.
okay.
And so let me.
I just want to help the non-lawyer listener. Like, what am I
Yeah.
supposed to do with this
Call a
information?
lawyer.
Because all they want to know is, hey, Jimmy, I'm calling you to know what am I going to pay in child support.
Right.
I
Yeah.
used to be able to tell them in an initial phone consult within about 2 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah.
If they could answer about 3 questions for me,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm
ans-
like, I'll have to call you back tomorrow.
And and now the
Yeah,
answer
exactly.
is going to be a lot more of it depends.
Right.
We're going to do
Because
consult.
there is going to be a significant more amount of it depends.
Yeah.
And that's not just giving a lawyer answer. That is, no, it actually will depend because we're now going to get to the point of where days and hours will
matter.
Yeah,
significantly
you're
impact the actual
165
child
days.
support obligation.
Yeah, your 165 overnights versus your 170 overnights could be
Yeah, it makes a
a
difference.
good bit of
Yes.
money.
Right. So this is what this is what the pro se's need to do, and again, good on the Georgia Child Support Commission because they've tried to make it as simple as possible, in that they have the links on their homepage. But the problem is what I think is going to happen is we're going to have more litigation over the number of overnights each parent has.
Yep.
Right. Well, here's a question I ask.
Yeah, here's your 50-50 all the time.
Here's my question. 2 people walk into a Fulton County court for a divorce. Neither of them has an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got well-meaning judges down there in the family division that already are overworked. They have so many cases, and in some cases backlogs for various reasons. And now we're going to look at these judges and say, you guys got to do this because
The
the
legislature
legislature
said
said
you had
so.
to.
And people coming in often don't have lawyers at all. So you judges have to do this. And I'm just wondering how that's going to work.
I think what is going to ultimately end up happening with that is that you're going to have a lot of generic models as to okay, here, this is the parenting plan that you're getting because we can very easily calculate what child support
we know
will
what
be
the
from
overnights
that.
are.
That's interesting.
We're
Yeah.
just going to use this specific parenting plan that has X number of overnights for the non-custodial parent and X number of overnights for the custodial
Yeah.
parent.
Yeah, you might-
And basically, we're just going to dump y'all's incomes into this, and this is what y'all get because that is going to be the most sufficient
So
way
you
for
think
us to handle
you
it.
think a
So they're
judge is going to
gonna-
default to set parenting
Absolutely.
So we're
schedules
going to
and
start
yeah.
jamming
I-
square pegs in
You're-
round
I,
holes.
I,
You're
I,
coming-
I,
you're
I
coming
think
back.
that absolutely is
You're coming
what
back
the
to
future
standard
is going to
parenting
be.
time, whatever standard is for
Yeah.
whatever judge.
Yep.
And then you're looking at just like what we had before. The presumption on the child support worksheet was like an 80-20. There's your presumption because you
Yep.
put in those overnights, end of
That's
story.
it.
That's realistically what I think
You're
is
not
going
going
to
to
be the
get
future
creative
because
parenting schedules.
let's take somewhere like Fulton County. Okay, I got an email from a staff attorney in Fulton County the other day that we had submitted a proposed order and got an email back from the staff attorney that said, "Hey, sorry, we just we're new on the family bench. We just inherited over 700 cases. We're trying to basically get our heads above water right now."
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
that email.
And
Yeah.
so, in a situation like that, when you take one family division judge in Fulton County who has over 700 cases assigned to him,
Yep.
no, they can't sit here and
don't have
and,
the
and
time.
even under the
it
child
goes
support
back to
guidelines
Steve's
right
45
now.
minutes just
Yep.
to do it.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
It, like even talking about the child support guidelines right now, they don't have the time to give that a ton of attention. And now you talk about having to do this.
Right.
No, it's going to be here.
Right.
You're getting this parenting plan because we can very easily calculate it from
Yeah.
there.
No,
Well, my
you're probably
45
right.
minutes is probably too rich because I didn't know until this podcast that Patty said there were some defaults. that
Auto- Yep.
auto-populate.
auto-
Some
Yeah, 'cause
auto-populates you can use.
Again, I went to public school in Alabama, Stan, so I'm not that sharp, but maybe I can speed it up. But your point's well taken. Even if you cut that 45 minutes in half, that's
Still a lot
10
of time.
times as much time as it would have taken before.
Yep.
So it's
No,
it
you're probably right.
It just
Yeah.
further enhances the mess down there in Fulton County, which is having a tough time.
Yeah, you're
and-
probably looking at this is the standard for if there's a non-custodial parent, this is a standard 50-50, end of
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Well, and no, I think something that you kind of touched on, I think that is probably going to be something that, at least in the family law community, is going to go around. It's that, okay, Judge X in Cobb County or Gwinnett County or DeKalb County or Fulton County, what is their default parenting
Yeah.
Yeah.
plan?
Yeah.
Is it Friday afternoon until Sunday afternoon? Is it Friday afternoon until Monday morning? Is
Yeah.
it Thursday
Thursday.
afternoon until Monday morning? What are we talking about? Does a judge have a certain proclivity for ordering this?
Right.
Does every judge have a different default kind of standard parenting time
Yeah.
that we need to basically go ahead and prep for going into trial as
Right.
kind of expecting, here, if custody goes this way, this is what it will be, and this is what child support will be.
Right, and then even if custody is the issue, if their standard is going to be this is what the parenting plan is going to look like, it's pretty easy to do multiple worksheets. Well, if this person gets this is the same, and this person
Yeah.
gets this. Your worksheets are basically the same. You just flip through who the custodial parent
Yeah.
is.
So I ran some examples. You guys want me to
Yeah,
go through?
tell us.
Okay, so
Teach us, oh wizard.
All right.
Wise one.
Okay,
Yoda.
so what I did was I took
Is she the Yoda of the firm?
she's the Yoda of the firm.
If this
Yo-
is a
Yoda of
galaxy
firm.
far, far away, she's the Yoda.
She's the Yoda,
Yoda
for
of
sure.
the of
Then-
Shewmaker
She's even
Lewis
wearing
Patty
gray.
I am.
is.
Oh, wait a
kinda-
minute. If she's the Yoda, then Jimmy's definitely Jar Jar Binks.
No,
Oh, yeah.
no,
Oh, yeah.
all
absolutely
right,
not.
all right.
You don't think so?
No.
So
Steve,
I
I'll fight you
so
right now on camera.
all right. So I took
All right, let's see it.
I took a family. We have a mom, we have a dad, and we have one child.
Okay.
Dad makes $10,000 a month gross monthly income. Mom makes $5,000 a month gross monthly income. Dad is the non-custodial parent. If we do a schedule where Dad has every other weekend, Friday through Monday morning,
Okay.
so that's two overnights.
Two overnights
That's
every
three
other
overnights.
weekend.
Friday, Saturday,
Friday,
Sunday.
Saturday,
Three
Sunday.
overnights
Yeah.
every other weekend.
And then we do week on, week off
In the summer.
In the summer. That's 30.8% of the time that Dad has.
Okay.
Let me back up. His basic child support obligation is 1121. Mom's basic child support obligation is 561. If we do the every other Friday weekend, Friday through Monday, and this is no time during the week, he gets a parenting time adjustment of $196.80. So about $200. So it brings him down to about $921 from $1121.
And that's
So
alternating
are we
holidays as
talking
well?
standard alternate
Well,
holidays?
I just alternated spring break, Thanksgiving, and Christmas.
So
Okay.
no
So
fall
no fall or
break,
winter.
no
Yeah.
winter break,
Okay.
nothing
Right,
like that.
right.
Okay.
Now, if we take that same schedule and just add in Thursday, so we
Yeah.
make the weekend go from Thursday to
Yeah.
Monday morning,
Yeah.
that gives Dad 35.3% of the time, gives him a parenting time adjustment of $304.
Whoa.
So now he's going from 1121 now down to just under 820.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but even adding that one overnight,
Just
one
Yeah.
overnight
During the
on a
school year,
consistent
during
basis.
the
Well,
school year,
and
yeah.
that's what when you
Jeez.
said no weekday.
Yeah.
I was going to say, all right, well, how does that?
Right.
Now,
that.
if it,
Is there a tipping point or a watershed point where it drastically decreases child
so
support?
it really does become very fact circumstance dependent depending on the income of the parties. If the parties were closer in income, and and then one what exactly do you mean watershed? I don't even know what you mean by that.
Well, let me put it to you this way: would it behoove, would it behoove us to dedicate some time as a firm to having somebody run multiple models?
There's too many models.
Yeah,
Is
there's
that
so
right?
many. you
Yeah,
can
I
come
mean,
up with.
especially with income now.
Well, I had a question for you,
Yeah.
real quick before you, because I think this might be where you're going. What if the non-custodial parent is the lower earner and you get this type of adjustment? Is there any circumstance in which the custodial parent is paying support?
So
Or there's like a negative
Well, okay.
support
So
figure?
that's an interesting question. It's a good question. That really only happens. Generally, no, but
Okay.
it can happen depending on what other things go into the worksheet. Because
Sure.
remember, I'm not
Sure.
putting any
No
other
adjustments.
I'm not putting any adjustments for
Okay.
work-related child care. I'm not putting any adjustments for medical insurance. I'm not putting any other deviations. But the new child support guidelines do say that if the non-custodial parent has a negative number, the custodial parent pays child support to the non-custodial parent.
That is a
That's going to create
that's an interesting
So,
dynamic right
now,
there.
gonna create some
the last thing I'll say about this, and then we do need to wrap up, is that going back to my scenario, if the parties have 50-50 time, the parenting time adjustment is 841. So
Period. That's what it is.
that's the parenting time
Yeah, yeah,
adjustment.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So 1121 minus
Oh,
841.
that particular case.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. For this,
Okay, okay.
no. For this particular case, the dad making 10,000, mom making 5,000. Now, what's interesting is, I don't know about you guys, but the way I would calculate a parenting time deviation in a 50-50 is I would take both parents' presumptive amount of child support and equalize it.
Yeah.
That is effectively what the parenting time adjustment does.
Okay.
Would it be accurate to say, for people listening in, that the amount of time a non-custodial parent spends with a child now under the new law, the more time that is, it's going to cut deeper into the child support obligation?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
So if that is in fact true, then what people should understand, lawyers out there listening or lay people listening thinking about splitting up, what we're talking about is this law has the effect of increasing a lot of litigation.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot.
lot.
And then in closing, I would say that it's going to cause a lot of litigation. I will tell you that I have had one judge, and I won't name names, but I had one judge who both sides presented a parenting time adjustment, and the judge declined to consider it, saying, look, he thought that the law was problematic, and which makes me wonder if there's going to be adjustments. And remember, this does not go into effect until January 1st, 2026, although judges, of course, can take it into consideration.
I would love to know who that judge is. You'll have to tell me
Offline.
privately offline.
But
All right.
that's-
is that it for the
that's
day?
it. That's
All
it. The
right.
child
This
support-
It's a
this is-
doozy.
This is Lawyers Without Billboards, Shewmaker and Lewis. This is a heavy topic. If everybody listening, if their head is swimming, I think ours is too right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Stay tuned, and we'll figure out where this goes in a year. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Lawyers Without Billboards. If you found this episode helpful, make sure to follow and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more resources or to get in touch with us, visit shewmakerandlewis.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.